6 headlines, one day, and every single one of them is reshaping the world as we know it. Today, we are covering the following breaking developments. Iran declares that non-hostile ships may transit the Strait of Hormuz under Iranian coordination. President Trump says the United States is talking to the right people in Iran, and that Tehran is desperately seeking a deal. The Pentagon prepares to deploy an additional 3,000 troops to the Middle East. Pakistan offers to host decisive negotiations between Washington and Tehran. China is secretly mapping the ocean floor in preparation for submarine warfare against the United States. And Russia launches nearly 1,000 drones in one of the deadliest aerial attacks of the entire war in Ukraine. This is March 24, 2026. Let's get into it. Start with the Strait of Hormuz, because what Iran just communicated to the United Nations Security Council and to the International Maritime Organization is not a minor diplomatic note. It is a declaration of conditional control over one of the most strategically vital waterways on the planet. The message, sent by Iran's Ministry of Foreign Affairs on Sunday and distributed to all 176 member states of the UN Maritime Agency on Tuesday, is direct and chilling in its implications. Non-hostile vessels, the note says, meaning ships that do not belong to the United States or Israel and are not in any way supporting what Tehran calls acts of aggression, may transit the Strait of Hormuz, but only if they coordinate with Iranian authorities. Think about what that means for a moment. Iran is not simply threatening to close the strait. Iran is positioning itself as the gatekeeper of a choke point through which approximately 1/5 of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas flows every single day. That is roughly 21 million barrels of oil per day. Tankers from Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, Iraq, and Qatar all pass through those waters. Global energy markets are already in chaos. Fuel prices are climbing in Europe, Asia, and the Americas. And now Tehran is telling the world that passage is conditional, that permission must be sought, that Iran decides who moves and who does not. The war between the United States, Israel, and Iran, which began with American and Israeli airstrikes on February 28th, has already paralyzed a significant portion of this traffic. What Iran is now doing with this diplomatic note is formalizing that paralysis into a legal framework, or at least attempting to. This is hybrid warfare at its most sophisticated, not a naval blockade in the traditional sense, but a declaration wrapped in diplomatic language, sent through official UN channels, that achieves nearly the same effect while giving Iran a degree of plausible legitimacy in the eyes of nations that depend on those waters but have no interest in choosing sides. And here is where the story gets genuinely complicated, because on the very same day this note was circulating through UN corridors, President Donald Trump was standing at a podium in Washington telling reporters something that seemed almost contradictory. He said the United States is talking to the right people in Iran. He said Tehran wants a deal so badly, and those were his words, that it sent what he described as a large gift worth an enormous amount of money. He did not specify what the gift was, except to say it involved oil and gas, not nuclear weapons. He said negotiations are being conducted by Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. And then he said something that will define the entire regional dynamic for the coming weeks. Iran has agreed it will never have a nuclear weapon. Iran has not confirmed any of this. Iranian officials have consistently denied that formal negotiations are underway, calling American claims of dialogue fake news. But the Iranian Foreign Ministry did acknowledge receiving messages from friendly countries indicating that Washington was seeking dialogue. That is a significant admission, and Trump's statement that Iran is speaking sensibly suggests that whatever channel is open, whether direct or through intermediaries, something is moving. At the same time, Trump warned that new Iranian leaders, after the killing of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and dozens of other senior figures in the strikes that have killed more than 1,340 people since February 28th, could be targeted again just as easily. That is not the language of someone who believes this war is over. That is the language of someone managing a negotiation from a position of overwhelming military superiority while keeping maximum pressure on the table. Which brings us to the Pentagon announcement, and this one deserves your full attention. The United States Department of Defense is preparing to deploy approximately 3,000 soldiers from the 82nd Airborne Division to the Middle East. This is on top of the thousands of Marines already heading to the region. The 82nd Airborne is not a regular infantry unit. It is one of the most elite rapid reaction forces in the entire American military, capable of being mobilized and deployed anywhere in the world within 18 hours. Its presence in a theater does not mean combat has already been decided. It means that the option of immediate ground engagement is being positioned. Two defense officials confirmed the deployment to CNN while requesting anonymity because of the sensitive nature of the planning. No decision has been made to send troops into Iran itself, they said, but the language around this deployment is unmistakable. The United States already has 50,000 soldiers in the broader Middle East region. U.S. Central Command announced on Tuesday that American strikes have destroyed more than 9,000 military targets inside Iran since February 28th. Missile launchers, naval assets, defense industrial facilities, command structures, all of it under sustained aerial bombardment for nearly 4 weeks. The addition of 3,000 airborne soldiers is not about increasing the bombing campaign. It is about having a force ready to physically control terrain, whether that means seizing the Strait of Hormuz, securing a beachhead, or entering Iranian territory if the diplomatic window closes. A Reuters and Ipsos poll released Tuesday shows 61% of Americans now disapprove of the strikes, up from 59% just 1 week ago. The political clock is ticking for the administration. Trump needs either a deal or a decisive outcome, and the 82nd Airborne is the insurance policy for both scenarios. If a deal is coming, Pakistan may be the place where it happens. Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif made a public offer on Tuesday on the social media platform X, stating that Pakistan is ready and honored to host significant and conclusive negotiations for a comprehensive solution to the ongoing conflict. Trump immediately reshared Sharif's post on his Truth Social platform, a signal that the offer is being taken seriously in Washington. Pakistani sources told the Anadolu news agency on Monday that a U.S. delegation was expected to arrive in Pakistan within 1 to 2 days for possible negotiations aimed at ending the war. The same sources, however, added a sobering caveat. Tehran is not yet ready due to distrust. Pakistan's role here is not accidental. Islamabad has a long history of serving as a back channel between hostile powers, particularly given its geographic position between Iran, Afghanistan, the Gulf, and China. General Asim Munir, the Pakistani army chief, reportedly spoke directly with Trump on Sunday about the war. That conversation appears to have produced this opening. Whether Iran will accept Islamabad as a neutral venue remains uncertain. Iranian officials have publicly rejected any characterization of ongoing talks, calling American claims fabrications. But the machinery of back-channel diplomacy is clearly in motion, and Pakistan is positioning itself at the center of it. Before we continue, if you are watching this channel, you already understand that what is happening in the world right now demands more than headlines. It demands context, analysis, and clarity. If this kind of deep reporting matters to you, consider subscribing to this channel and activating notifications. Every day, we break down the events that are reshaping global power, and right now, every day counts. Now, let's keep going. While the Middle East dominates diplomatic headlines, the Pacific is where the longer strategic game is being played. A Reuters investigation published this week has revealed the full scale of what China has been doing across the Pacific Indian, and Arctic Oceans, and it is far more extensive than any previous reporting suggested. China has been conducting a vast mapping and monitoring operation of the ocean floor using dozens of research vessels and hundreds of underwater sensors. One vessel alone, the Dongfang Hong 3, operated by Ocean University of China, spent 2024 and 2025 sailing in systematic patterns through the waters near Taiwan and Guam, around strategic sections of the Indian Ocean, and across key shipping lanes near the Strait of Malacca. In October 2024, the vessel serviced a network of powerful Chinese ocean sensors capable of detecting submerged objects near Japan. In March 2025, it crossed the waters between Sri Lanka and Indonesia. According to naval warfare experts and former U.S. Navy officials who reviewed the Reuters findings, the data being collected by these ships provides China with a precise picture of underwater terrain conditions, current patterns, salinity gradients, and acoustic channels, all of which are operationally essential for submarine warfare. Submarines navigate and hide by understanding their environment. A submarine commander who knows exactly where the thermal layers are, where the sound channels run, where the rocky seafloor creates acoustic shadows, has an enormous tactical advantage over one who does not. The data being collected by Chinese research vessels is building exactly that kind of knowledge. In waters surrounding Taiwan, near Guam, near Wake Atoll, near Hawaii, near every major U.S. military installation in the Pacific Theater, Rear Admiral Mike Brooks, commander of the U.S. Office of Naval Intelligence, testified to a congressional committee this month that China has dramatically expanded its survey efforts, providing data that enables submarine navigation, concealment, and the positioning of sensors or weapons on the seafloor. 9 naval warfare experts who reviewed the Reuters data described the operation as consistent with military battlefield preparation. Jennifer Parker, a former Australian anti-submarine warfare officer, put it plainly. The scale of what they are doing goes well beyond any scientific purpose. This is preparation for expeditionary deep-water naval operations with a clear submarine warfare component. For decades, the United States Navy has operated with an asymmetric advantage in its knowledge of the oceanic battle space. That advantage is being systematically eroded, and while diplomatic channels open in the Middle East and China maps the ocean floor, Russia launched one of the most devastating aerial attacks of its war against Ukraine in the last 24 hours. Between the late hours of March 23rd and the afternoon of March 24th, Russia deployed nearly 1,000 kamikaze drones against Ukrainian territory. More than 550 were launched during a rare daytime wave on March 24th, targeting the central and western regions of the country. At least 7 people were killed and more than 50 wounded. In Lviv, 32 people were injured when drones struck civilian areas in the historic center of the city. The Bernardine Monastery Complex, a nationally significant architectural landmark located in Lviv's historic district, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, was damaged. Local resident Yerema Samanev, who was in a cafe approximately 500 meters from one of the impact sites, described the scene. People were running from the Danilo Halitsky monument as if it were a terrorist attack. In Ivano-Frankivsk, 2 people were killed and 4 others wounded, including a 6-year-old child. A maternity ward and approximately 10 residential buildings were damaged. In Zhytomyr, a 12-year-old girl was hospitalized after being wounded in a strike on the city center. In Vinnytsia, 1 person died and 13 were wounded. Power cuts were reported across multiple regions. Ukraine's Air Force tracked large drone formations over Kyiv, Chernihiv, Sumy, Poltava, Vinnytsia, Cherkasy, and Dnipropetrovsk throughout the afternoon. Serhiy Flash, an advisor to Ukraine's defense ministry, wrote that Russia is constantly changing its tactics in mass attacks, trying to find vulnerabilities in Ukrainian air defenses. The current strategy, he wrote, is to launch strikes spread out over time. What this attack demonstrates is that even as diplomatic conversations about the Middle East dominate global attention, Russia is escalating, Nearly 1,000 drones in a single day is not a routine operation. It is a statement, and UNESCO World Heritage Sites are not accidental targets. This is the world on March 24, 2026. Iran controls the terms of passage through the world's most critical oil route. Trump says a deal is close while deploying thousands more troops to the region. Pakistan is offering its soil as neutral ground for negotiations that Tehran still publicly denies are happening. China is preparing the ocean floor for the submarine warfare of tomorrow. And Russia is raining fire on civilian neighborhoods in western Ukraine. Every one of these stories is connected by a single thread. The existing global order is under pressure from every direction simultaneously, and the decisions being made this week will determine what comes next. What do you think? Is a deal between Washington and Tehran actually possible, or is diplomacy here just a pause before further escalation? Leave your take in the comments below. We read every single one of them.